The Ag Tribes Report is brought to you by Legacy Interviews, a video service that captures people as they really are, so the future knows who they really were. Here is Legacy Interviews guest Carol Hensley discussing the opportunity for a quiet person to speak their mind.
How was it for you, the experience?
Very comfortable. Tried to sit down every morning for a week or two and reflect on my life. And I'm recalling well over 70 years. I may not talk very much, but I think a lot. And I listen to other people. If they don't talk a lot, they're surely thinking. And if you ask them their opinion, they may share it with you. You've asked for my opinion. I don't mind sharing that. I think I probably talked more than I should have.
No, not at all.
Welcome to the Ag Tribes Report, a breakdown of the top stories affecting the culture of agriculture, with your host, Vance Crowe. The report begins in 3, 2, 1. Let's begin.
Welcome to the Ag Tribes Report. I'm your host, Vance Crowe. Each week, I bring on a new co-host to talk about the many issues facing the ag tribes throughout the U.S. and Canada. This week, I have Jay Curtis, a grain farmer outside of London, Ontario. And Jay is a longtime friend and somebody that I've actually gone up and seen his operation. Jay, welcome to the show.
Hello, Vance. Thanks for having me on.
So what have you been paying attention to lately?
Well, just hoping the trade thing for everybody gets sorted out. And yeah, just that's been big on everybody's mind, just what's going to go on. Prices of things keep going up. Inputs. It's the time of year to prepay fertilizer and seed for people, so that's on everyone's mind. Yep.
Yeah, I just returned from a trip up to Saskatoon, Canada, and I have to say it was a kind of a jarring experience. I remember having been up in Saskatoon 5 years ago, and I can say that the population seems to have changed rather dramatically. Prices have gone way up from what I remember. It seems like Canada is in a very weird spot right now. Yeah. Things are getting pretty pricey for everything. Yeah. It's like people are getting used to it somehow. I don't know how. Yeah, that's kind of what happens with inflation, which I'm sure we'll talk about today. So today we're going to talk about the U.S. announcing bridge payments to farmers that should come out next week. We're also going to talk about how Canadian conservatives are trying to end hidden taxes on Canadian food production. We're also going to talk about how the U.S.-China soybean deal has been progressing and how it's impacting Canada. And we'll also talk about how Tyson has closed one of their major beef plants in Lexington, Nebraska, sparking some pretty intense economic fears. We're going to do that. Plus, we're going to talk about the Bitcoin land price report. We'll hear Jay's Peter Thiel paradox, and we'll talk about his worthy adversary. And we're going to try and do that in just 30 minutes. So let's get started. Story number one, the U.S. is announced bridge payments for farmers just next week. U.S. Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins announced on December 2nd that the Trump administration will unveil a bridge payment for farmers next week, providing short-term relief amid low crop prices and billions in lost soybean sales to China from trade tensions. Funded through the Commodity Credit Corporation and possibly other sources, the aid aims to help farmers plant next year's crop while longer-term trade and support packages are being developed. Eligibility targets those hit with the economic challenges, though details are very vague and still pending. The announcement follows a 43-day government shutdown that delayed aid, with payments expected by year end. This comes as farm groups push for more immediate help, despite $40 billion in projected 2025 payments, which is the second highest since 1933. Jay, the Canadian government has their own program for supporting farmers and recently increased agri-stability compensation to 90%. Where are you at with this sort of subsidy that farmers are getting from the government?
Well, your program is quite nice for the producer. It's instant relief for the pain they're going through. Our program's more complicated, margin-based stability packages. They're complicated. I don't even partake in it myself. It's the payback's poor. It takes a long time to get it through the system. We do not have the same type of support system you do. Our crop insurance here is relatively decent. We pay a we pay, I think, around a third of the true cost of it. The province pays a third and the feds pay a third. But that helps us greatly. But we're usually left short on compared to the U.S. producers.
To me, these big payments are so wild because everybody knows if the government just creates money out of thin air and then starts giving it to farmers, that is going to go directly out of the farmers' hands and into input prices, into storage prices, labor prices, because everybody now has more dollars to compete for the same number of scarce resources. I don't know where this ends. It seems like it is a never-ending treadmill of continuing to need more and more payments to make it all work.
Yeah, it's not a good situation, and it's just more and more inflation, right?
Yeah, and I think like it's funny though. You know, every time I bring people on, they say, "Well, you have to do this, otherwise farmers will lose their farms." And I agree. 13.5% of a farmer in the U.S., their bottom line comes from these government payments, but like nobody really wants this money other than if they don't get it, they know that, you know, their balance sheets won't work out. So you have to do it. I don't see any way out of this. I think we will print forever on this.
Well, it seems like every time there's, say the 13%, the gain there, then everything else just ratchets up, and we're always right back where we started from, with more rent, more machine costs, more seed chemical. Everybody gets in queue to take up that added income. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that added income in story number 2, because the Canadians are facing what seems like pretty wild food inflation. So Canadian Conservatives demand an end to the, quote, hidden taxes on Canadian food production. On December 4th, Conservative John Barlow tabled a motion calling for the immediate removal of 4 hidden taxes the party says are driving up grocery prices: the industry carbon tax on fertilizer and farm fuel, the consumer carbon tax on trucking food, the plastic ban that raises packaging costs, and deficit-driven inflation. The latest food price report, produced by several Canadian universities, is projecting an average family of 4 will pay an estimated $994 more for food in 26 than they did this year because of issues like the taxes and potentially trade issues. The motion highlights the food prices have jumped 40% since the Liberals took power in 2015, with food inflation still running at 3.5% to 70% above the Bank of Canada's target. Conservatives say scrapping these measures would deliver real relief to farmers and families. The non-binding motion has no vote scheduled yet, but it puts fresh pressure on the Liberal government as Canada's food price report forecasts increased prices. So, Jay, what do you think? Can the government really do anything to slow down the food price inflation?
Well, all those proposals are great. It seems to be the same problem over and over again. It's just my view, my opinion, that all the rural ridings generally vote conservative. All the cities and the built-up areas are just constantly liberal, and they have more people, and they just always win. There's a seems to be a sense that there's more perks or handouts to those people, and they'll continue to vote liberal, even though the common sense, the hard medicine, is a little bit of pain. Let's not do these taxes quite this way, and everyone would be a whole lot better off. But it's a real tough go. Pierre Poilievre just doesn't seem to jive with the city people. It's I don't know. It's just an attitude that doesn't go over with them, and we just keep doing the same thing over and over again. You know, it's tough.
Yeah, it's wild. You know, one U.S. dollar will buy you $1.40 Canadian. And I was in Saskatoon, as I was saying before, and I was looking at the prices of things, and I was like, this is insane. Like, I went to buy some small candy bar, and I was like, this costs like $6 US or something like that, like, or just 6 Canadian and whatever that was in US dollars. I was like, I can't imagine living in a place where your dollar goes for so little.
Yeah, it's a common experience. Go to the grocery store. I do a lot of the shopping now. I'm retired basically, and it's shocking how much it adds up. Yeah, it's a real problem.
I don't know what you do if you're a young person and you're trying to make your way in the world and you see not only your housing prices go up, which I hear in Canada are crazy, but also your food prices, everything else. How do you get out of this hole?
I don't know. There's going to have to be a big change because to me, I'm sure it's far harder now than it was when I was young. Absolutely.
You think so?
Absolutely. Insurance, price of fuel, price of vehicles, just all the things like the cost of getting a license or license plates. Everything is through the roof. You have to be very well off to have what a meager income could enjoy when I was a teenager. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll bet it's 3 or 4 times different.
Yeah, I feel bad for Canadians. I see that, you know, Alberta's trying to do some stuff with their own currency. I see like people trying to do stuff, but it doesn't seem like anything's going to get the traction you need to slow or stop this. I think nothing stops this train.
Yeah, it's a bit depressing.
All right, let's move on to story number 3. The U.S.-China soybean deal progresses, but exports are still down 32% for 2025. On December 3rd, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said China is on the correct cadence to hit its 12 million metric ton commitment of U.S. soybeans by February, following the October 30 Trump-Xi summit in South Korea. That deal ended with a month-long freeze on where exports dropped to 0 in June and July, the first such drought in 2 decades. Proof is in the cargo, though, as the state giant, I don't even know how to pronounce this, COFCO bought 180,000 tons pre-summit for December-January delivery by November 17th, 14 cargoes loaded from the Gulf ports, and as of December 4th, the USDA confirmed 2.25 million metric tons for the 26 year, but insiders estimate 3 to 4 millions via small deals. So still, the 2025 exports are projected at 18.2 million, 32% below 2024's exports. Jay, when you look at the stuff that's going on with the U.S. and China, how is this impacting Canadian grain farmers? Well,
Perfectly directly. When you have your trade hiccups with China, it hits us exactly the same. We can exchange grains freely across the border, so it's just pain for us, and we're not going to get any checks in the mailbox right shortly. Yeah.
Yeah, I was reading, I think tariffs are somehow impacting grain trade between the two countries, because there were a whole bunch of grain that was supposed to go from North Dakota up into Canada. They were going to get tariffed on its way in. And so all of that corn and soy got dumped into the North Dakota and Minnesota markets and dropped their basis, something like 30 cents.
All right. Yeah. Like over the years ago, if we had a rough crop here, your income would be down per acre. But, it would be, it used to be the Casco plant in London, and Michigan corn would come over freely. I mean, it was just disheartening when it's not, it's not helpful always. It goes both ways, right?
Yeah, I feel like we're really ragging on Canada here. It seems like things are pretty tough, and it's hard to say where there's light at the end of the tunnel. Do you see any light at the end of the tunnel for any of these issues?
Well, it seems easier to take now than it did, say, last March. Last March, it was very bothersome, and then we had a late planting start here, and I don't know, prices, they're higher than I expected they'd be. I don't know why, but I hope we just can work through the whole trade thing between our countries.
You planted soy this year. How was your crop?
It was pretty decent. Yeah, very good. I was thinking it would be a home run for yield. We were just short right in the middle of summer for a month too long with no rain, but it was very good. Yeah.
All right, moving on to story number 4. Tyson closes major beef plant in Lexington, Nebraska, sparking economic fears. Tyson Foods announced on November 21st it will shut down its Lexington, Nebraska beef plant in January of 26, eliminating 3,200 jobs, nearly 30% of the town's population, and cutting 5% of U.S. beef slaughter capacity. The move, plus a shift reduction in Amarillo, Texas, aims to, quote, right-size operations amid a $426 million
beef losses last year, driven by low cattle herds and high feed costs and $2 billion in procurement spikes. Lexington is home to 11,500 people, and the ripple effects are going to be huge there. Online independent Senate candidate Dan Osborne blasted this choice by Tyson, saying it is a violation to crush the competition. 4 firms in the U.S. control 85% of the processing, and so Osborne was urging Trump to block this closure or force a sale. Users like Tornado Nate called it a war on the heartland, and Tyson, meanwhile, was trying to smooth things over by pledging relocation aid, but they've got no details on any of that. Jay, what do you think? Is the government, should they be able to tell a packer that's one of the 4 controlling 85% of the capacity, no, you're not allowed to shut this plant down?
Well, the whole thing's a big mess, and I think it's the government's problem in the first place, how we got to this point where just a few control so much of it all. Like when my dad was alive, we had a small beef herd here, and things were very different then. I mean, there was abattoirs for local killing all through the countryside, and that's greatly been exterminated almost with policy and bullshit from the same government that's gonna somehow save the day now. It'd be nice to somehow get back to a little bit back the way it used to be with more local killing capacity all through the country. We wouldn't be in this terrible mess.
Yeah, I mean, and the more you look at the complexities of the beef world, the more you find out, like, there are so many rules here, it is obscene, right? The amount that the USDA has to be involved. And if you're a small scale producer and you're taking your beef to a local locker, but you live right on the border of Nebraska and you want to send it over to Kansas, you can't do that. In fact, I've got a farmer out in Kansas. I was like, hey, you have meat, you're slaughtering hogs, you're producing them the way I want it. Can you send it to me? And he goes, no, not until I can get a USDA sticker, and we don't have, that's not in the cards for us. And if you're trying to start up a facility, the ability to get a USDA inspector stamp is crazy. The amount of money you have to pay into it. And I mean, I did an entire podcast with a guy named Jason Mock who talked all about the insanity of the USDA system.
Yeah, it's too bad. And I think it's hard. It's hard for the small guy who just wants to even do a local freezer trade, even find a spot to get the animal processed. Like it's doable, but it's not easy. I understand. Yeah. We're losing capacity.
It's the very opposite of, the USDA is portrayed by the government as this thing that's protecting food resilience and making sure we're protecting American farmers. But this system where the amount of regulation is what has caused the consolidation, because you have to be so big to be able to withstand the amount of bureaucratic red tape that you have to get through, that there's almost no chance you're going to do it if you're a little guy.
Yep. Yeah, it's too bad.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this week's news stories. It's a pretty rough week out there. I hope everybody is hanging tough. But now we're going to move on to the Bitcoin land price report. This is where we make a comparison between the price of Bitcoin and the price of land. So, Jay, you live just outside of London, Ontario. And how much is an acre of high-quality farm ground there?
I'd say it's around 27,500.
And that'd be Canadian, right? Yeah. So if we were to translate that, it looks like it's $19,700 USD. And so Bitcoin's price is slid considerably since my last Ag Tribes report. It now sits at 92,000. So that means that 0.214 Bitcoin would buy an acre of farm ground up where you're at, or 1 Bitcoin would buy you about 4.7 acres of land. How does it sit with you, Jay?
It is what it is. Yeah, that's all I can say.
So right now, if you were looking out at the world and you had a chance to buy 4.6 acres or 1 Bitcoin, which would you buy?
I'd keep the Bitcoin under the current situation.
Is that right?
I would.
Go ahead.
No, more upside.
So how is it to purchase Bitcoin in Canada? What's the process like? I think it's a little bit different than in the US.
Yeah, I know you talk about this river. It's a thing you use. We have the same type of things here. There's there's Kraken, for example. There's Bitcoin Well in Alberta. There's different ways you can easily e-transfer money is the simple way, and they can either hold it for you, or Bitcoin Well is really good. If you send them some money, they send it right to your address, so it's instantaneously becomes yours. Yeah.
When we were talking and you had purchased Bitcoin, you had to jump through some hoops to make it happen. There were quite a few people looking to quote unquote help you. Tell me about that.
Yeah, in the beginning it was very frustrating. The banks are, in my opinion, the banks and the government are not really keen on people going down that path. I think they're mainly afraid of losing control of what's going on with the money, and I think they use the guys, to me, that they mix up Bitcoin with shitcoin. Um, and they're certain when you call, if your transfer gets blocked, you have to call. You have to go through a bunch of hoops to get to someone, and then you'll sometimes hear a lecture, and it's like, so you just have to sit there and take it, and then resolve the issue of authority of whose money it really is you're dealing with, and then the transactions can occur. And sadly, that is still a very frustrating thing in this country. And I think it would, would bother some people to have to go to that. Lots of people aren't bothered, but I've experienced some degree of annoyance with it. And then the other aspect of that is, and it's ETFs that totally mirror the Bitcoin. That's just fine and dandy with all levels of bank and government, because the control is there, right? So it is what it is. Yeah, it's a complicated mess.
The upside to an ETF is that you get all of the price action of Bitcoin. So, and the upside and the downside, but you at least are getting the action that can happen there. The downside is ultimately you don't own that Bitcoin, and Bitcoin's real power. You really feel it when you control the key to the Bitcoin. But for a lot of people, that path to be able to purchase a Bitcoin, and you and I one time did a demonstration on how to move Bitcoin from an exchange to a wallet. And for the people that think like, I don't want to make that step, or it's going to take me a little while, the ETF at least gives you price exposure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an easy way to do it. The principle of it all, as you get further and further into the education of the whole thing, then, the principle is still going to point you in the direction of sole ownership and true peer-to-peer. Yeah.
You guys have so much smaller of a banking system than we do. Like, it's just a few banks, right? And so if you want to really expand into this, I hear people using things like Bow Valley Credit Union. But tell me more about the banking in Canada.
Well, they're big banks. They're extremely powerful, and just a few of them. And I think in a world-class system, they're very dependable and secure. And you mentioned Bow Valley. I've looked into them. They're just for the people of Alberta, and they are totally behind it 100%. Like they'll hold it for you. You can use it against mortgages and things like that. It's very, very fluid and easy to deal with there. Yeah, they're the only one I know of in Canada that's kind of pro Bitcoin. Yeah.
There has been an absolutely wild change in the last just week in the United States. In the United States, Bank of America came out and said, we think you should hold at least 4% of your assets in they say crypto, but they should just mean Bitcoin. You're seeing all these different wealth funds. JP Morgan Chase is now getting into the game. Vanguard, who years ago had said they would never allow Bitcoin, now is potentially going to become one of the biggest providers of Bitcoin to their many, many millions of customers. And it seems like in the U.S., the system for the banks, they're starting to get their asses in gear and change.
Yeah, and We don't seem to be that. Like I said, we have no problem selling ETFs all day long. I mean, tax reporting, all that is just, they're more comfortable with that. I think that's the whole core of it. Yeah, Bow Valley, there's rumor of them becoming national. And I think if they did, it would just really change things in a hurry. Yeah.
Well, if you are interested in purchasing Bitcoin, I recommend the river.com. They've been great for me. That's where I purchase my Bitcoin. And if you use the link in the show notes, that will also, not only will it give you access to a great way to purchase Bitcoin, but it will also support the show. So see the link in the show notes to purchase Bitcoin and help the show. All right, moving on now to the Peter Thiel paradox. This is where I'm going to ask Jay, what is one thing that you believe that almost no one you know agrees with you on?
Well, right now I'm going to unplug my headset. I'm afraid my battery's getting low. There we go. So I'm going to speak a little clear, and hopefully that still you can hear that okay. My Peter Thiel paradox. Well, I have to go with something a bit far out just to be exciting, and it's still plausible to me. Would be nuclear fusion. Now, no one in my tribe would believe nuclear fusion is going to happen anytime soon, but if it did, I think there's going to be a big change for like everyone on the face of the earth, but especially for anyone that's in agriculture. And sadly, we could synthesize a lot of the nutrition we need. And I think it would turn ag, and especially big ag, upside down completely if this ever happened. And that seems like a ridiculous thing to say, perhaps. But the other thing is, airplanes first flew in the sky with a man in it only 120 years ago. So use that as a parallel in how things change. You know, it'd be similar.
Yeah, I mean, I'm initially like, nuclear fusion, isn't this something that they do in the movies to be like, we could get free energy? But it's almost hard to grapple with the idea that you could have boundless, endless energy. And for Canada, then that would turn things upside down because so much of your economy is based on exporting oil.
Yeah. No, everything would be different, and I think what would happen is the massive sad and hopeless people in the cities would migrate and live back out in the rural areas across the country again, and I think things would be pretty decent again. I think it would totally change everything.
Why do you think people from the city would move out to the country if there was free energy?
Because ag as we know it is upside down, it would just seem reasonable and inexpensive to live there and live the life of how, say, I live where I live, not in the city.
Very interesting, Jay. I got to say, this is probably a solid 8-3. I don't agree with you that it's going to happen, but it's an interesting idea to kick around.
All right.
Let's finish up with your worthy adversary, which is where I'm going to ask Jay, who is somebody that you respect but strongly disagree with?
Well, it's a tough thing to say to somebody, but I'll say it. But it starts with a common thing through this whole little talk here today is kind of the hopelessness of it all. And what I see in the world is for the young. And I have a daughter and a son, and the daughter's in the big city. And to me, if you don't have help from your parents, owning a house, getting married, and having kids is completely almost hopeless. Not entirely, but it's very difficult. To the degree of what I'm used to, what I enjoyed, I thought I was tough sledding when I was that age in my 20s, early 30s. But I think it's many times worse today for them. So who is my worthy adversary? I'm gonna go with Pete Archer. He goes by Amazing Pete on X. He is a great farmer and a great friend. I've known him for over a decade. He does wonderful things. He's sharp with his business. He runs big elevators. And he's a most charitable man. He does terrific things for charity in his community. And the only thing I I object to is when he shit talks Bitcoin. And now these people, they tend to come out with the shit talk. It's a joke. They mean it as a joke, but then it builds a posse mentality, and it's the predictable ones that always join in. And I just kind of, I'm sitting there reading it and I'm chuckling. I know what they're up to, but what kills me is everything that's wrong with the current system goes back to the broken monetary system. Truly, I think it is. The more you the more you become orange pilled, as they call it, the more you become a little more aware of how the Bitcoin system works, how the protocol works, how it got to be what it is. It just screams at you. And I think these people, what annoys them about this world heavily aligns with what the medicine of Bitcoin could do as a money system. And it's worth investigating. It truly is, of course. So I guess I just not that I take great offense, but I take offense when things are said that are not entirely maybe come from a place of education about the topic. And how do we get over that? I don't know.
I think you're being really charitable to Pete. I know the similar thing. It's like as the price of Bitcoin drops, all of a sudden people come out of the woodwork to laugh and be like, "I told you so. I told you this was going down." And you're sitting there being like, one, I don't know why you would celebrate, anybody's investment going down, but that's fine. It doesn't bother me at all. But the bigger thing is, if you're cheering for this, it means that you think like philosophically this is not the right way. Do you have a better way to stop the government from printing money and handing it out to whoever is closest to the political system? This system allows you to finally control how much money the government has to be able to spend, and it starts making them have to prioritize things instead of just continuing to shower everybody with money. And the very problem that they are concerned about, the people that are often the largest, most vociferous people against Bitcoin, people like Jared McDaniel, Mizzou Tiger, they are always like laughing and celebrating this. And I think this is the one thing that aligns better with your philosophy than any other thing I know. Why are you so excited that it's going down?
Yeah, it's very interesting in human nature, I guess. It's I don't know what to do to, I don't know, how do you get out of that? I don't know.
Yeah, it's worth looking at. And you know what? I'm totally fine with somebody that's got different perspectives and they're like, hey, you haven't thought about this. Like NNZP on X. I love that guy, and he's got reasons why he thinks X won't, Bitcoin won't work, or other things that I suggest. That's an argument I'll have all day long. That's fun. The laughing as price goes down, that just seems ignorant to me.
Yeah. I don't know what else to say. It's kind of, I don't know. You could take it to different church groups. We don't run around typically attacking each other's congregation for letter of the law religious interpretations. It's maybe just a little more respect, or having a curiosity. Somehow get a curiosity, I don't know, dig into it a little bit. Depends how you talk about it.
Well, Jay, it has been a blast. Finally, after many years of me asking you to come on the Ag Tribes Report, that you were finally willing to do it. If people wanted to interact with you, poke you about Bitcoin, learn about your perspectives, where could they find you?
Well, I'm on X. Yeah.
Yeah. What is yours is J Curtis 7AC. What's the 7AC?
Well, it's the letter J and then Curtis at 7AC, I believe. And the 7AC, a lot of people would think that's 7 acres. It's not 7 acres. It's a model of airplane that I have. It's an Aranca Champion 7AC. That's a model. It's a 1946. So what is that? It's 79 years old. Yeah. It's pretty cool. Still flies like brand new.
Well, Jay, thank you so much for coming on, and I'll definitely have you back on anytime you're willing to come on. I mean, it's not very often I get a Bitcoiner on here, so this is a lot of fun for me.
All right. Well, thank you.
All right, that's going to do it for this week's episode. But as you know, Christmas is on the way. And if you have been thinking about doing a special gift for your loved one, consider getting them a legacy interview. This is where I will sit down with them to talk about their life stories, to talk about where their ancestors came from, what their childhood was like, the ups and downs of their career, marriage and parenting, and the wisdom that they've learned along the way. Just yesterday, I had a couple in here, and they had gotten the gift for their 80th birthdays. They were both turning 80. And I heard from the client that did it later on that day that both parents said it was the best present they have ever received in 80 years. And I take that as high praise, but really, it's the act of sitting down, listening to somebody, and then having the feeling that so much of the experiences they had are going to be captured and handed down. So if you're interested to learn more, go to legacyinterviews.com and schedule a call with me to talk about how we could make this one of the best Christmas gifts you have ever given. I'm going to sign off now, but I also offer a communications class, so I thought I would tell you a little bit about it. We'll be back next week with another guest. So as always, feel free to disagree.
Good negotiation is one where both parties walk away slightly disappointed. That was probably my default world model, BV, before Vance. Well, Vance had a lot of these models that he created. I ingrained a lot of these models so deeply from working with Vance for a long time that I started to re-communicate them to my friends. And my friends' eyes had the same sort of light up of understanding of like, this is a thing that could help me be more effective in life. Whenever Vance let me know that he was working on sort of putting this into more of a workshop form, I was like, yeah, man, I want that for my team like now. If my first 2 employees go through this so that we have this shared set of context and a shared set of language, that's gonna create value for my team going forward.
I wanted to get better at communication myself. I knew I had good ideas in my head that I wanted to be able to communicate to potential investors, and I was not super confident in being able to do that before.
I thought that negotiation was basically for people in a boardroom, like CEOs. Words like shareholder are involved. So I thought that you had to have a lot of resources at your disposal to even care about negotiations.
Both people had to lose, or both people weren't happy in the end. I found that what you both want is achievable by understanding the needs of the other person more.
A negotiation is really a way to solve a problem that you have. You can rearrange the world in such a way where all parties get something that they're happy with. So you don't need to possess great resources to be involved in a negotiation or to really benefit from knowing how to negotiate.
RJ and I initially were 2 different businesses. It became clear to us over the long term that we would be much more bullish on our shared future if we found a way to actually be one entity, one whole working together. That required us to have what to many would be very hard conversations because we're both CEOs of our own independently funded businesses, but we were able to have conversations and get to the root of what our actual interests and what our actual skill sets were.
Having both people understand this pattern of communication was useful to pull out those tools when we needed them the most in difficult conversations.
It's very helpful to have that quick language to do something more productive than continue to misunderstand or whatever else you're doing.
Building relationships isn't just you communicating to the other person. It's also figuring out how to let the other person communicate to you so that they trust you. Getting into a real conversation and diffusing tensions before you get to business.
A lot of people have a default model where they're like, I want to raise my own money. I want to start my own business. I want to do my own thing.
We find that they have specific interests that could help us. We become allies instead of competitors.
I guess the course gives you tools to know that you can say the right words to extract those things out of the ether and put them in your life.
Learning interest-based communications from Vance might actually be the single highest leverage skill set that I ever developed before starting this company. I'm by default an introvert. I think that I've developed the ability to interact with people in such a way that it's energizing and it's fun, and I look forward to interacting with strangers on a regular basis.
You should just take it. Just do it already.
Yeah, I feel like you should just do it. No, I don't know. I feel like it's life content. It's definitely fun life content.
I am doing exactly what I want to be doing with my life. Interspace communications did that for me more than anything else that I've learned.